You said, quote, when I left the White House, the first thing I did was buy the URL skybridgebitcoin.com. It became clear from my discussions with the Treasury that they were going to digitize the dollar, and the gateway for that digitization I felt was going to be Bitcoin. Anthony, maybe you can tell me about this journey of yours, because as usual, you were first on this, especially in your kind of space. And I know you probably lost some investors by going in. Talk to me about your journey with Bitcoin.
Definitely lost some investors while going in. A lot of, the acronym FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but there's also fuddy-duddies, Brian. And so we have a lot of older fuddy-duddies that don't like Bitcoin, or they follow Warren Buffett around. And of course, Mr. Buffett said it was rat poison squared. But you are bringing up my departure from the White House, my unceremonious and brief stay there. But I did learn a lot. And remember, people don't remember this. I was the chief strategy officer at the XM Bank for a period of time as well, prior to joining the White House as comms director. And there, it became very clear to me that the yuan is digitizing, the Chinese currency, and the United States will need to digitize its currency. The question is when. I don't think it's an if question. I think it's a when question. And by the way, there's a lot of value to the United States doing that. Weirdly, there's a shortage of dollars. We are in a dollarized world. And so when you think of the steady flow of global commerce and people want to denominate that commerce in dollars, a digitization would actually offer a competitive advantage and some value to the US. And so why Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is, in my mind, the apex predator of the digital currencies. It has the largest market cap. It eclipses the others. It's probably 60-ish, depending on the day, 55 to 60% of the overall market capitalization of cryptocurrencies. And its scarcity, I think it makes it very valuable long-term. So a couple of things had to happen for us. I'll just be brief. One, we had to see these go to 100 million wallets. That looked like it was going to happen last October. That's when we started accumulating positions. Number two, I had to get comfortable with storage because we're an institutional investor. We have over $1 billion of Bitcoin and Ethereum at this point. And I had to make sure I could store it safely. And Fidelity provides that. New York Digital Investment Group does. There's a layer of insurance from Lloyd's of London on those. And they're held in cold storage, meaning they're uncorded from the internet. And then the last piece is the regulatory piece. And I think I have a good nose for this. I hope I'm right. Gary Gensler is indicating, he taught a course at MIT on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and he's indicating that he recognizes the value. And I would suspect that these Bitcoin ETF applications, of which I have one in place, will start to get approved by the SEC. And I think Bitcoin's price is actually reflecting those thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that regulation. I mean, I had, Dan Moorhead here a couple weeks ago, former Goldman guy like yourself, and he sat next to Steve Mnuchin, and he said, like a bunch of my guests did, he said, I don't think that you'll see JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, all these institutions going in if they didn't have a feeling from regulators that this wasn't just going to be, have the plug pulled on it immediately. So most people feel pretty comfortable. Do you feel that same way, as if regulation isn't going to stop you dead in the tracks or stop this market dead in the tracks?
Yes, I feel that way, but I want to add just two sentences. I think where Dan's coming from is the United States still is the global leader in terms of the financial center of the world. London still has elements of that as well, so I'm not trying to disparage London. But if you look at the Wall Street community, it really still is the financial arterial structure of global capitalism. I don't think the United States, from a regulatory perspective, wants to cede that. They may not like Bitcoin. They may not like what's going on in the world of decentralized finance. But you saw in the infrastructure bill 6 or so weeks ago where the senators don't really understand what's going on, but they could feel the lobbying pressure from Bitcoiners and other crypto people. And they were like, okay, well, wait a minute. This is here to stay. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, met with Jerome Powell in May of this past year. I'm pretty good friends with some of his founders, people that are on his board. I think the resonating message was, listen, don't cede this to Singapore or Hong Kong or London or Malta. give us the opportunity to be fairly regulated here in the United States so that this ecosystem can burgeon and we can create all these jobs here in the US. And I think that message is pretty clear and resonating with our public servants.
Yeah, that's good news, and hopefully they'll see it also as a potential, taxation bonus. And some people have said they're not going to, kill the golden goose if they can see it that way. Obviously, infrastructure bill, we saw it. So I had one of my guests that said it was the greatest piece of free PR that Bitcoin ever got was that infrastructure bill, and ultimately a net win. Just to finish off with regulation, how did you see that bill and what's happening on that?
Well, it's interesting because Elizabeth Warren was railing on Bitcoin, fairly nasty about Bitcoin, rebuking it. And then you could see she either got influenced by her donors or somebody explained to her, if you're a progressive, Bitcoin could actually serve the underbanked. It could help as a mechanism to get more people into the financial system. It's lower fees. You don't have those minimums, all that sort of stuff. And so lo and behold, even the people that thought that they were against Bitcoin, once they understood it, I think they got more in the middle of the road as it relates to regulation. And so my attitude, the narrative coming out of that infrastructure bill is they're going to treat this like they did the junk bond market. You and I are old enough to remember the inception of the junk bond market and the uncertainty from the regulatory perspective of what they were going to do with the junk bond market. They ultimately accepted it and embraced it as part of the financial systems architecture. And I think that was the message you were getting post-infrastructure bill, that Bitcoin's here to stay. And you said it better than me, follow the money. These guys are going to tax it, and they're going to drive major benefit from that as well.